Yes, what could be more beautiful than a hot coffee or tea? All of this, perhaps even on the go or at the construction site, in your backyard at home, or while camping. No problem, that's exactly what the Makita cordless kettle DKT360 promises. What we can really expect from this little device, whether it can boil water or if it's just hot air, we'll find out together in today's video. I'm curious. I hope you are too, and that's why I would say let's get started right after the intro. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel for free and activate the notification bell to not miss any future videos. You can find the current prices of this item in the video description below. And with that, I'd say let's get started after the intro. At first glance, you might think it's nothing special, just a regular kettle, but it's not with a cord. It's a cordless kettle. This makes it extremely versatile, whether it's on the construction site, at home, while camping, and more, and we don't need a power outlet. More precisely, today on the table for you, the Makita cordless kettle DKT360. What this device has to offer, how it performs in practice, and for whom an investment might be worthwhile, I'd say these are the questions we'll explore in today's video. So I would suggest let's start right away with what's included in the package. As you can see, the Makita DKT360 comes in a compact cardboard box in the solo version, as indicated by the Z at the bottom. This means you'll need to separately purchase batteries and a charger. On the front, there's a large image, and the other sides look similar. I'd suggest let's take a look inside the package. From the product box, the first thing we find at the top, who would have thought? Of course, it's the user manual for the kettle, as you can see, relatively thin. I don't think there's much described here, and right below it is the actual device. And between these cardboard boxes is the Makita DKT360 kettle itself. As you can see, as predicted, it's undoubtedly a very compact device, roughly comparable in size to a conventional kettle. Nevertheless, let me measure it quickly here. We have a height of around 310 millimeters with a width of around 200 millimeters and a depth of about 270 millimeters. Additionally, the kettle is surprisingly lightweight, which is, of course, partly because no batteries are installed here yet, and on the other hand, because the housing is almost entirely made of plastic. Nevertheless, upon closer examination and touch, the device gives a familiar impression of quality. Both the base and the actual kettle, as you can see, are really sturdy and resilient. In terms of quality, there are no plastic remnants or uneven gaps. This means that even if the device is on the construction site and might accidentally fall, it won't pose a significant problem for this kettle. I'm sure, though, that this will happen in very rare cases because the kettle simply has a surprisingly secure and stable base. This is, of course, evident from the very large base down here, as well as the relatively low center of gravity, and lastly, the 4 small rubber feet on the bottom, which provide additional grip on smooth surfaces. It's also worth mentioning that on the bottom, inside the base, there are, as you can see, 4 small recesses. These are undoubtedly there so that if you accidentally spill water on the kettle, it can easily drain downward. And finally, this is also quite important. On the left side of the bottom, there's another small black button. This is a pure safety feature and ensures that the kettle can check whether it's really standing on the ground or not. This means that if the kettle is on the ground with the button pressed, the kettle can be activated. As soon as I lift the device, the kettle can no longer be activated and automatically deactivates. Apart from that, there's nothing more to see on the bottom, so I'd suggest we continue at the top, specifically with the handle. As you can see, the handle is also entirely made of black plastic, no rubber coating or the like. But I must say, overall, it doesn't feel bad. It's comfortable to handle, and it can easily be gripped by both small and large hands, making it easy to transport the entire kettle, even over longer distances, without discomfort. This is partly due to the fact that the entire kettle is quite lightweight, which I've also verified for you. The base weighs only 1,000 grams, and then the actual kettle weighs another 1,000 grams. So we have a total net weight of around 2,000 grams. To operate the kettle, we need additional batteries, in this case 18-volt batteries, and a total of 2 of them, each weighing 3,270 grams. Of course, with the larger batteries attached at the back and possibly some water in the kettle at the front, the whole device is no longer as lightweight as before. However, I must say that the large handle makes it easy to handle and carry. Speaking of batteries, since we're on the topic, I've already mentioned it and it's also written on the left side here. It's an XLT device, which means we need 18-volt batteries and a total of 2 of them to operate the kettle. If you want to achieve maximum runtime, you should opt for larger batteries such as 5, if not even 6 ampere-hours, as I have in my case. How long the kettle can last with these batteries will be demonstrated in the practical test later on. In this context, it's also worth mentioning that the kettle has a convenient battery status indicator on the back. So much for the back of the kettle. Now let's turn our attention to the front. The first thing that strangely caught my eye here is that we have a slightly different shade. I don't know if it's visible in the entire video, but the base has a slightly darker shade than the actual kettle on top. I've actually noticed this with other Makita tools as well. When you place them side by side, you can occasionally see a slight difference in color. Unfortunately, I can't tell you why this happens. If you've also noticed this, feel free to write it in the comments below. Other than that, on the front, we only find the 2 large white Makita logos and the sole control element on the kettle, which is the button for the activation in the middle. As you can see, this is a small rubberized button with orange backlighting. It has a pleasant tactile feel and it's sufficiently large, allowing for easy activation of the kettle in practice. Upon pressing it, the LED, as visible in my case, starts blinking orange, indicating that there's an issue. Naturally, on one hand, the base is not on the ground, and on the other hand, the actual kettle is not in the dock. It's worth mentioning here that due to the contacts on the bottom, the container can only be placed on the base in 2 positions, with the handle to the right or with the handle to the left, so it cannot be placed in the center. Therefore, if there's still water in the container, the kettle can be easily activated, as you can see. In my case, it's not possible and it starts blinking again because we have practical safety features built in, specifically the dry run protection. This has the great advantage that, as the name suggests, the kettle cannot be activated if there's no water in the container, protecting the device from overheating. And now, let's move on to the actual container, which we'll also examine in detail to see how the device performs in practice. As you can see, the container, as mentioned earlier, is also made of plastic on the outside. Fortunately, on the inside, there's no plastic. Instead, it's made of stainless steel or something similar, and the lid is also made of plastic with some rubber for sealing. For carrying or tilting the container, there's a reasonably sized handle on the back, also made of plastic. It appears to be very sturdy and resilient, allowing for comfortable carrying and safe tilting of the container, as mentioned earlier. It's important to note that the container cannot be easily opened with one hand. Instead, on the top, in turquoise color, you'll find 2 small latches. These need to be squeezed together to open the lid. Furthermore, the lid doesn't have a clamping mechanism or the like. It needs to be manually opened and closed. In this position, you can also clearly see the 2 contacts for locking on the right and the left. The positive aspect here is that we only need to open the kettle, or more precisely the lid, when filling it. For pouring water, we have another 3rd small turquoise button on the top, which allows us to release a lock at the front. This means simply pressing the button once. As you can see, the locking mechanism at the front, indicated by these 2 lock symbols, is released. We can easily pour the water and then lock it again. From practical experience, I can say that this feature works really well when used correctly. The sealing is, of course, there to ensure that the kettle doesn't leak water during transportation, even if it's accidentally tilted a bit too much. This means that, on the other hand, if the kettle is fully filled with water and I hold it with the lid closed, a few drops may still come out. But in normal use and during transportation, the closure is quite effective at preventing leaks. So now the most important question arises: how much water can the kettle really hold? To find out, let's take a look inside the device, and we can see that there are corresponding markings on both the right and left sides. There are a total of 8 small markings, indicating that the kettle has a total volume of approximately 800 milliliters at most. At first glance, this may not seem like much, especially compared to a conventional corded kettle that can easily hold up to 1.5 liters. However, it's important to keep in mind that it's a cordless kettle. It doesn't have unlimited power, so it can't heat dozens of liters of water. In my practical test, I filled the kettle to its maximum capacity, which means I added a total of 800 milliliters of water to the container. The water from the house's tap was at a temperature of around 15 degrees Celsius. Additionally, for the practical test, I used two large 18-volt batteries with 5 ampere hours each, which I had freshly charged before the test to provide maximum capacity for the test. After inserting the batteries, I activated the kettle and started the stopwatch while continuously observing the device with a thermal camera to monitor the heating process. After a while, to be precise, in just under 9 minutes, the kettle automatically turned off, indicating that the water had reached its boiling point. What can I say? I would argue that this is not a bad result for a cordless kettle. Compared to a corded device, which typically has double the volume and boils water in 3 to 5 minutes on average, the cordless kettle with its approximately 9-minute boiling time still performs quite well. The only drawback, of course, is that, as expected, the kettle, just like a corded one, is quite power hungry. This means that after the test, following the 800 milliliters, both of the large 5 ampere hour batteries showed only 1 or 2 out of 4 bars remaining. In practice, this means that a maximum of 2 rounds with 800 milliliters each are possible. For mobile applications, in my opinion, this is entirely sufficient because 800 milliliters equate to 4 such cups, which should definitely cover a coffee or tea gathering. All in all, I can say that the Makita cordless kettle DKT360 certainly holds its own. Of course, the device is mainly aimed at those who don't need to boil a lot of tea or coffee and find themselves in places where there's no fixed power supply for a kettle, necessitating the use of a battery-powered solution. In that regard, the device is really top-notch and gets my recommendation. The only requirement is that you have sufficiently large batteries with you. So, I'm looking forward to your feedback. What do you think of this cordless kettle? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please show it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for free and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. You can find the current prices for this device in the video description below. Thank you very much for your continuous support, and with that, I'd say take care and hopefully we'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.